Welcome back to the FanSpeak Network and another episode of Sibling Showdown for Thursday Night Football. I'm your host, Meg, and you can follow me on Twitter at Megs08DFS. And I'm, of course, joined by my brother, my sibling. You can find him on Twitter at Steve-O-Speak of, of course, Steve. And we are talking the Thursday Night Football Showdown between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, a big NFC North rival clash in Green Bay. We've got some injuries to watch out for, but before we talk about that, Steve, what are you thinking? Are you excited for tonight's game, and how do you like this slate?
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely interesting. The divisional aspect of it, the first couple Thursday games, turned the Minnesota one obviously had a lot of yards and points, but turned into a bit of a blowout. And last week, obviously, just turned ugly fast with Saquon being out and all that. So,
right.
This week, while we do have some injuries, it sounds like most of the key skill guys at least are going to play.
Right.
So that's at least good. Obviously, there's some secondary injuries that can impact some things, but that's at least good. And yeah, it is divisional, so everything's on the line for these teams, as both have are 2-1 and have playoff aspirations.
Yeah, and to speak to your point, that's probably why these guys are coming back and not taking the long break here, because they obviously could have taken a long break, but it is a big divisional matchup. And so the key guys we're, of course, speaking of, and you all probably know this if you're watching this, David Montgomery should be back. What is his workload going to be? TBD. Christian Watson, Aaron Jones on the Packers side, looks like they're expected to play. Again, what is their workload? We don't know. If you listen to the Twitter doctors, and I do, I think I have a little concern with soft tissue injuries, which both Jones and Watson are hamstring injuries. There's definitely a potential re-aggravation risk there. I don't know what the re-aggravation risk for what is a thigh bruise for Montgomery, but I don't know. I guess the way I'm playing it, and then I want to get your overarching thoughts, and then we'll head over to Run the Sims, and then we'll head over to DraftKings, and that's how we'll break down this Sibling Showdown. But the way I'm kind of handling it is, this just feels like a weird slate to me, with these guys coming back, not knowing what percent, is there re-aggravation risk? Are they getting their full complement of snaps? All these, wild card factors. I'm going to probably play less lineups. And then with those less lineups, I'm going to be contrarian. I'm going to probably fade the guys coming back. And maybe make another, other one or two big fades that allow me to be super unique. We'll talk through this when we get into it, be unique at the captain. How are you handling the guys coming back, and what are your overarching thoughts for the slate?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing is, because of this, because these injuries were known ahead of time, but also known that they could potentially come back, DraftKings didn't necessarily price these guys down, but they also didn't price down the backups, because there was an expectation that they very well could miss. So there's not real value. It's not like we can say, oh, well, the backup running back for either of the teams is still going to get more workload and play well. I mean, even if you think that Gibbs goes back to the role that he had when Montgomery was there, he's priced really high, and it's going to be tough for him to get there. Same with A.J. Dillon, and Dillon does not look well. And same with, the receiver side with the Packers. So, and we really don't know how that all breaks out. So there's not great value on this slate. So that's definitely one thing. And yeah, I agree with you. It's, we have these situations that on the Packers side, their offense has not been very efficient so far. Is some of that to do with missing two key offensive weapons? Sure. But if they're not 100%, is it going to be that much better against what we've seen to be so far a very tough Lions defense, a defense that is slowed down a team, which was, yes, without Travis Kelce, it's still the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, and has just played pretty well overall. So yeah, I just think that I want to be cautious, more so on the Packers side, just because I think Watson is reliant more on the deep passing play, and you need pretty good hamstrings to get a 60-yard bomb. So
yeah, no, I think that those are all good points. And the biggest point you mentioned is what we talked about in the Sibling or the Showdown survey, which is up on fanspeak.com. All our content's free, obviously here free on fanspeak.com. Check it out. Article breaking down the Showdown slate in a survey format between Steve and I of our favorite captains, values, fades, contrarian plays, and just overall strategy. We're going to talk through it here, but if you want to see the written version, check it out on Fanspeak. But the biggest point that stuck out to me, and you pointed it out, and it's a big one, there's no value on this slate, like none, because usually I can feel it's not like a comfortable click necessarily for like a punt play or two, but I can get behind it enough to say, okay, I'll take a shot, especially in a large field or something like that. There's like none. So like the lowest I feel comfortable going truly is kickers and defenses, which I do think will make the kickers and defenses higher owned than they typically are potentially. But again, I'm looking to get different at other spots. So if I have to play one or two, a kicker or defense, I'm not concerned about that ownership. If it's like 10 or 15% higher than it typically is, I don't care, because I'm getting different other places in the captain and some fades and that kind of stuff. So, but that's why I look at it, is the massive standout is what you said, no value on this slate. So, that's going to be big, and that's where it's going to be. You have to make big stands on both your fades and, probably your captain plays and that kind of stuff. And that's what we'll get into here. So let's go over to Run the Sims first. Look what kind of they are projecting. Oh, sorry. Don't want to be that close. And what Run the Sims allows you to do is, if you go into their inputs, you can input your own score, pace, rush rate, market share, that kind of stuff. We didn't mess with, what they had projected, and we kind of let it run. And it then tells, excuse me, based on that, the optimal results of how often these players should be in the captain, be in the total lineup. So, it's just interesting to look at. And then it also can show you leverage based on early ownership. Now, with this slate, that's another thing. I think ownership could, it moved massively already from yesterday when we didn't know about some of these guys, and we don't even have 100% confirmation yet. It can move even further with just the slightest of reports. So be cognizant of that. But what they have, Stephen, I'm sure this is to no surprise, they've got both quarterbacks, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, as the highest total rate. And then it's pretty flat. It's like Christian Watson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, Sam Laporta, Jaden Reed, and AJ Dillon, Musgrave, then like the kickers and defenses and that kind of stuff. So as far as captain, their highest rate is actually David Montgomery, who I know you like, but you also liked him because you thought he'd be lower owned. They have 53% projected ownership. I know other sites have a little lower. So I could see him coming anywhere between 30 to 50 or 25 to, I don't know. We will see what his total ownership is now that he's been, is projected in. But they have the captain rate the highest for Montgomery, then actually Jordan Love, and then Amon-Ra, and then looks like Goff. So with all that said, who are you looking at as, let's start with the captain, of course, first. Who are you looking at captain?
Yeah. So, I do think it can be a relatively close game. I just like the Lions in this game. I know it's in Green Bay, but I like the Lions to score more, especially from a touchdown perspective. So I'm focused on Lions and the captain. And while I like Amon-Ra a lot, he is expensive. So I do like Jared Goff. And then Sam Laporta, I think David Montgomery, and honestly, even Josh Reynolds as like the flyer captain. I know he came with 0 last week, but he still ran 70% of the over 70% of the routes. This is the guy the first 2 weeks we saw get some deep balls. If he gets back to the 6 to 8 targets that he had those first 2 weeks, catches a deep one, gets that touchdown, gets 100 yards, could get that bonus, on DraftKings, that can be huge in your captain spot, especially if that means Amon-Ra doesn't get that bonus. So just from a leverage perspective, I would include him in the mix in large field stuff. But from the Packers side, it's tough to get excited about much of anyone. Jordan Love, maybe Aaron Jones, just because I do think this is a big game for them. If they're in near the goal line, they've struggled to score. AJ Dillon has not been effective. They've, I just think Aaron Jones has been a red zone weapon for years with Aaron Rodgers, and I think they're going to need that back. So they might try and force feed him the ball around the red zone. I don't think he's going to have a massive total workload coming back from an injury like this, but maybe kind of similar to the theory of David Montgomery having the goal line work and maybe getting 2 touchdowns or something like that. Maybe Aaron Jones gets that. So the problem is he's much more expensive than David Montgomery. So that's the problem with that kind of play. But those are kind of the only 2 Packers I really love. I mean, I like some others later, but just not as captain options.
Sure. I mean, I know you and I are both interested in Laporta. We've been high on him all best ball draft season, all summer long. We both have a very high exposure to him and exposure rate to Sam Laporta, and drafted him a ton. So far, it's looking good. He's almost an 80% route participation. He has almost 78% routes run, 22% target share. I mean, that's kind of honestly exceeded my expectations. And with that underlying usage, he had his breakout game last week. I think got 83 yards, 8 catches and a touchdown, nice long touchdown from Goff. And I think he was targeted 11 times. It's everything you want to see from Sam Laporta, and they need him. And especially if we think Jair Alexander, I know he's questionable as well, but I think expected to play. We'll wait to see on that. But if Jair Alexander is a go, I think they have kind of, to some extent limited Amon-Ra as far as yardage is concerned. I'm not saying he can't score or get some catches, but as far as like is Sam Laporta. So, those are the big things. Sorry, I know there was internet issues. I apologize. And I apologize for the internet issues. Give me 1 second here to reconnect. Thank you if you're bearing with us. And we will be able to hopefully. Always fun tech issues. Can you hear me okay, Steve?
Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay. It's still saying it's trying to connect. So we'll just keep going and hopefully don't have any issues. So anyways, with that said, so I'll make it quick. So Sam Laporta is my main captain, except when I said I'm being contrarian.
I like that call. I do. I think he's got the upside, and like you said, his usage is incredible. He's off to the best start for a rookie tight end in NFL history, I believe. So that's a great call.
Okay. Can you still hear me? Because it says I'm not connected. Okay. We'll see. So since I'm having tech issues, why don't you run through your flex plays you're interested in?
Yeah. So, I mean, flex plays, basically all the Lions guys we talked about. I do think you could, take a shot on Jahmyr Gibbs. He did get more workload last week without David Montgomery, more runs. Still didn't get a touchdown, but his targets were way down. My guess is he goes back to what he was before: more targets, less runs. Still not a ton of use in near the red zone, especially inside the 10-yard line. So kind of limits his touchdown upside, and I just don't think his price is adjusted correctly. Clay Freeman, it looks like he is the number 3 receiver now, kind of taking over from Marvin Jones. He'll get a deep shot or two. So in a showdown like this, that can be all you need sometimes, but he's just not priced great. I think you can do Lions kicker and defense for sure. Lions defense has been getting after it. Aiden Hutchinson's off to a good start. Packers are with David Bakhtiari. I think Allen Jenkins is out as well. So, Jordan Love has taken some sacks, young quarterback, first time really starting. And, he's played well in some areas, but he's struggled in others. So, I think there's those are all fine plays. On the Packers side, we talked about Love and Aaron Jones. I'm just not as high on Watson, just between the price and just kind of the way that he's utilized. I'm also probably out on Romeo Doubs. He's really lucked out on the touchdown usage. Jaden Reed, I think, is just a better option running out the slot. Yes, Watson's back. I think his Jaden Reed slot role is very interesting. He's just a dynamic playmaker. I think they're going to have to utilize him against the Lions secondary. Also like Luke Musgrave. I mean, he's out there basically every snap running like 80% of the routes himself. So, very similar to Sam Laporta. He's been targeted a lot, doesn't have, as good of a connection with Jordan Love. Love's accuracy is still a work in progress, but, he's out there. And if that starts to connect and they start, completing those, he could have numbers very similar to Laporta. So, I think they're going to keep taking some of those shots, and, he'll need to look for him for sure. So those are kind of the guys, if you want a real contrarian take, you could take an AJ Dillon because he's been just awful so far to start. And now with Aaron Jones back, I don't think anyone's going to play him. Maybe now he actually breaks out. It's been so weird these last 2 years. Dillon's actually been very, very effective for the Packers, playing the split role with Aaron Jones. And, these last 3 games, he's been completely ineffective. So it's just very odd, in this same offense. But we'll see if anything changes there. But that would be a contrarian take. But I do like the Packers kicker. I think they'll move the ball, probably have to stall out. They'll need to settle for field goals. Not as big of a fan with the Packers defense. Goff's been pretty good with the ball so far. And the Lions offensive line is one of the best in the league. I know they're slightly banged up, but I think they're pretty good.
Okay. I'm bringing over, if you can hear me, I'm bringing over DraftKings. Yeah. Again, the tech issues, I'm literally like the Phillip Rivers gif, trying to breathe through my nose and stay calm here. But I'm bringing over DraftKings right now. And we will just quickly build a DraftKings lineup to get us out of here. Again, apologize for the tech issues, and let's talk through this. I mean, again, so in summary, because I know we were kind of with my tech issues all over the map, the way I'm handling it is big fades on the injury players. Gibbs, I'm going to do some fades where I on Amon-Ra and do if Alexander does lock them down, and 2 quarterbacks. I am doing a contrarian captain in Sam Laporta. And that's kind of my outline. What is, I know your outline is pretty similar. You might mix up your captains a little bit more. You might run some more lineups and mix up your captains a little bit more, but anything to quickly add on that before we build a lineup? I just wanted to summarize my thoughts since.
No. I think that's it. I'm just going to kind of fade out some of the bigger name guys like Watson, kind of like Gibbs. Dubs, and just hope those aren't the guys getting the touchdowns.
Yep.
And that's it. I just think it's very spread out. Probably not a lot of guys getting the 100-yard bonus in these types of games. Packers just haven't produced. Love hasn't had like a 300-yard game or anything like that. So, we're probably hunting for touchdowns in this type of matchup. And Amon-Ra is always, an option for 100 yards. But like you said, it's been a tough matchup for him in the past.
Yep.
Could be again. So, maybe like a Josh Reynolds, again, we've seen him get the deep shots. Maybe he's the one who spikes for the 100 yards. Maybe a Laporta spikes for the hundo. So, yeah.
So your summary is you like some contrarian captains like Laporta and Reynolds, and who would be your other contrarian captain in captain?
David Montgomery.
Okay, so those 3 are your 3. Like you said, you like Lions. Your summary is Lions captain mostly. Those 3 captains mostly, and then you're making some big fades on most of the injury guys. You might mix in some Aaron Jones. Obviously, you're mixing in some David Montgomery, but you're fading Watson and probably more limited on Aaron Jones to be able to mix in, again, the Lions side more 4-2, and then more like of some of those other guys like Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed, that kind of stuff. Does that kind of summarize? Okay. With those 2 summaries, let's build a quick lineup to get us out of here and see if we can get through this here. So do you want to build a Sam Laporta captain?
Let's go.
Okay. Let's see if my mouse is working. This is just crushing it here today. Nope, that's not working well either. Okay. Okay, so Sam Laporta captain, do you want to do an Amon-Ra fade or both quarterbacks? Because we're only going to do 4 here. So
yeah, let's have both quarterbacks in the lineup.
I like that. Yeah, I have this as a shell lineup, and this is my favorite shell that I have. So I'll let you pick the 4th player. I think I know who you're going to pick, but I'll let you pick the 4th player, and then we'll be able to show people what that allows you to do with the rest of your lineup. So go ahead.
I will go with Josh Reynolds.
That's what I thought you'd say, and I like it. Because if you're telling the story, and we all know in Showdown, you're telling a story, you are telling the story in this lineup that Amon-Ra is not getting a touchdown, is not getting the 100-yard bonus. Maybe he does still have, maybe he even gets his catch prop and gets 7 catches for, 65 yards or something like that. That's not going to probably, most likely that won't put him in the optimal. So with that said, then maybe this is telling the story that it's not the running game from Detroit. It is Laporta and Josh Reynolds getting them there from the Detroit side. What that leaves you is a very contrarian captain, both quarterbacks that have a very high raw points projection. Reynolds that should be fairly, relatively modestly owned, nothing crazy low owned or high owned. And then it leaves you 5,800 so that you don't need to punt. You don't need to go to one of those cheap value, dart throw plays. You can get 2 viable players for your last 2 spots. And I think that is key. So I love it. That's going to be my main shell. If you want to tail us, that's where we'll be. So that's my final thoughts for this. Again, be sure to check out fanspeak.com. Each and every week, we have a ton of DFS sports betting content, articles for DFS. We have a sports betting page, the NFL betting card. We're doing an NFL betting card show live at 3 today, so that'll be up. But NFL betting card will always have, the primetime games, the Sunday, obviously slate covered as far as all types of bets. We're going to have, obviously we got our guys Spread and Tyler covering the spreads and the totals. We are covering more of the props, anytime touchdowns, parlays. So it covers everything. So check out the NFL betting card and all our great DFS content on fanspeak.com. Also, Steve's been writing a great article you've been doing a great job on Battle Royale. And I had a good week on Battle Royale last week too. Underdog Fantasy, check that out. Use code FANSPEAK for 100% deposit bonus. But Battle Royale is fun. It's basically DFS meets best ball, kind of, right, Steve?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so check out the articles on fanspeak.com. Like this episode on the way out. Any final thoughts for the people for tonight, Steve?
Yeah, no, like you said, tell a story, take a stand tonight. I wouldn't try and get too cute. I don't think there's going to be a Ronnie Bell like there was last week because, that was an injury thing. And it just doesn't sound like there's that this week, So don't get cute and just find the build that makes sense. And you're probably going to have to fade a guy or 2 that you typically want, but that's what it is.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for bearing with any tech issues. Good luck tonight, and we will see you next time.